How you guys doing? I'm getting my mic set up here. Sounds a little better, I hope. There we go. Hi, Javi and Forbin and Andre, Joseph, Junior. Good to see you guys. Donald and the Rancher. How you guys doing? Hi, Bruce. Bruce, I'm glad you're here. I wanted to ask you: Are the punters are the punters having their online thing today at 5 o'clock still? Anyway, is the sound okay, everyone? Hi, Tim. Hi, Matthew. Okay, Queenston Drive. Good to know. Uh, no show today. Okay, I always checking. Are you guys going to have another time or day, or it depends on your schedule and a bunch of other stuff? Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you guys. Oh, hi, Tony again. Good to see you. Oh, good. Thanks, Donald. Hi, Truth. Good to see you. Uh, hey, Val. Okay. Let me. Some of you were here this morning, and we had begun talking about getting when a fashion watch becomes something other or tries to become something the other. Basically, let me give you my quick take on fashion watches. Basically, it's this: is that they're watches with somebody's logo on it, like Burberry or one of the other fashion houses, Versace or one of the others. I know this may come as a surprise to you, but I'm not up on all my fashions. I do have a list here that I had of the brands. These are the most popular and known brands, and most of them are fashion houses. I mentioned it this morning. Let me go over it again one more time, and then we can talk about this thing. Dominic. Hi, Andre. Indigit, how are you? Good to see you guys. Okay. Hi, Mark and JB. Now, JB, this is not Archie's, okay? So behave yourself. Act like a grown up. We don't have a daycare center. All right. Okay, here were the brands. These are the 15 brands that I had mentioned this morning. We can talk about those. Okay, we've got this is in order of how well known they were as luxury brands. It was Gucci, Chanel, Hermes, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Rolex, Tiffany's, Prada, Versace, Armani, Valentino, Balenciaga, Cartier, Burberry, and Omega. So this is sort of those are the best known ones. And hey, Richard, how you doing, man? And so these are the the big fashion houses. Now, some of these have watches, some of them don't. Let me give you the example of typical fashion watch. It would be I had one. I mentioned this earlier today. Was an Armani, and it had a quartz movement in it. Some of them may have a cheap automatic or hand wound movement, but not many of them. Most of them are simply have a way to put their logo on a watch that works, and it doesn't have to work well; it just has to work, which usually means around a quartz or something like that. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about this afternoon, and this is based on what we talked about this morning. What is it? Let's say you're hired to be an advisor to a watch company. We'll take one of these. I'll pick one I know that doesn't have. We'll say Prada, even better, Prada. So people from Prada come to you and they say, "Look, uh, we have some watches with our name on it, but they're not. They're basically relatively inexpensive watches that simply have our logo on it, and it goes with the handbag and everything else that we have." And so what I want to know is that, talking to you as a consultant, as a watch consultant, what do we need to do to get into high horology? Now, they call it high watchmaking, which is sort of interesting. They don't know what horology is, I guess. But I guess in communicating beyond sort of people who think they know what they're doing, um, high watchmaking makes a lot more sense. Okay. All right. So let's talk about that. So what would be the first thing that you'd want that you'd want to tell them? The very first thing you say, look, if you're going to have a high watchmaker watch, what are you going to put on? I mean, what are you going to need? Okay, no quartz. All right, that's a good start. Let's see. What costs you more money in the long run, Gucci or Jesus Christ? We do need the daycare center. All right, Santos, Domingo Santos. Jeez. Okay. Hi. How you doing, John? Um, okay, Val. Here we go. Fashion brands don't have to invent the wheel again. They could try to use existing but unusual movements and give them a nice finish. Yeah, that's probably. I think a lot of them do that too. Some really go and they do something different. One of the things that surprised me when I was looking at Gucci, I just thought they'd have those little the green and red whatever they use on in their logo and have that on a round watch, maybe a rectangular watch. But they have some really interesting looking ones in their quartz line. uh, they call them grips, I think, GRIP, grips, and they look like bathroom scales, and they have jumping hours and I guess regular minute, but they're interesting looking. They're not they don't look like what you would expect, at least what I'd expect from a fashion house. And so they've done some work on it. And they bring them in at over $1,000, and that's not cheap for basically a fashion watch. But let's say they really want to say, okay, we're gonna get serious about horology, and we're talking about Prada. Okay, so the Prada rep comes to you and says, okay, Buster, what do we need to do? I would say interesting complications and a signature look. Yeah, what would a signature look? Now this is rough. This is the Harry Winston. This morning, I think I had this one on. Maybe I had my Harry Winston on. Uh, this is Van Cleef and Arpels, and this one has a very distinct look. It has bar lugs up here and down there, so that's distinctive. And it has dual time and with jumping hours on both of them, and then it has the time along here, and so that's I think pretty unique looking for a watch. And so that would be one thing is if they want, or something that would somehow look cool. Okay, because for them, remember, the main thing that they're trying to impress is appearance. Okay. um okay, ask what is your goal, true high horology or just charge more money? Tony, that's sort of an interesting question, and I think I don't know if I'd put it that way, but I think they have sort of a plan, a big strategy, and so what do they sell? Let's say you take with Prada. Okay, I don't know for sure if they have this. All I know about Prada is that I saw the Devil Wears Prada. Otherwise, I know that's my sum total of knowledge about high fashion. So you say, okay, what do you have? Well, we got hats, we have gloves, we have blouses, we have dresses, we have coats, we have this, we have that, handbags, and so forth, and shoes, lots of shoes. So what we want is a watch that somebody who likes our products or like sort of the product brand can bring it all together with. Okay, so that would be one of the things they're asking you. Okay, so this would be something that I think is a reasonable answer business wise in the way they see things. Okay, what do you got? Hi Thomas. How you doing? Okay, Van Cleef. Yeah, this is Van Cleef. What they have done over the years, most of the watches that they make, the vast majority of watches they make are women's watches. Also, too, the vast majority of of years, they've won Grand Prix awards with their watches. And the way they do it is they go to these top notch watchmakers, Christian Vanderclaw, Jean-Marc Viderec, and they say this is what we want, and they've got the dough to pay for it. Okay, all right. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, what separates high horology from luxurious horology is movement, case, and dial finishing. All these should be improved in their watches. Also, have top watchmaker create a module for them. I agree, Joseph. Yeah, here's another thing I was sort of thinking about. Um, most watch companies have a base movement, okay, that they made themselves, and then they have different kinds of things they'll stack on top of it. There's, I'm trying to think, Moritz Grossmann that has really wonderful watches. I don't think they have that many movements. And if you look at their different watches, you'll see the same movement number come up a lot of times, but they're really good movements at the base. And so if they want to move out from that, they could change certain things. Maurice Grossmann, the interesting thing about them is that they seem to have more style consciousness in certain ways than other brands. Now, that's perhaps a stereotype that I have because of they've got a woman CEO. But if you look at the other, you know, German watches, uh, they're they're not always quite there with the style. Some are. I mean, all Longa seem to be pretty well. Okay. Okay, since they're Swiss, it would always be the latter. All right, what's going on? He was too nervous to talk, so his character was just to shoot. Oh, Jesus. Okay. All right. Do you want to sell high horology fashion watches to watch guys, or give them to or give fashion guys the option to go high horology? That's a great question, Val. I think I think the issue would be how to men and women, since women pay a lot more attention to fashion than men. Look at me, a prime example of what who is fashion handicapped. The the point would be okay if I'm running a business and I've got a customer base. Yeah, I'd like to pump them up to the next level. And that would be something you'd want to do, but you've got to have a next level that would justify the higher price and the investment and so forth in it. Hey Lee, looking cool as the cucumber. Thank you. Yeah, I'm big among other cucumbers. Hey, Cosmic Enforcer. I'm sorry. The problem with all the fashion brands is that they are very hard to sell once you want to move forward. Yeah, I mean, a lot of really good brands out there. If you think of resale price, the res- uh, then you're lost already. I think it, the in terms of moving forward, if you have a brand you can always sort of sell a more expensive one to somebody just getting into it would be the way I would think. Um, I was looking at some of the handbags and different things like that. They're insanely expensive. They're as crazily expensive as good watches. A purse, Hermes purse was like 30,000 bucks at an auction, or if they're on sale, they're anything under 20,000 is. But it's this is why it's such a it's an area because there's so much money and so much money to be made that there's they want to go all out. You take Rolex. Rolex is really interesting because it was one of the only on the luxury items or luxury brands that people knew about. Of the top 15, Rolex was number 6, which is really something, and Omega made it at the bottom at number 15. So both of them, as far as I know, pretty well stick to what they do best. Um, Rolex sells watches, and so does Omega. Okay, and without people think they're great watches, and that's fine. Once you get into a lot of horological discussions, you may come away with a different one, and the people who do are sort of looked upon as more nerdy, watch nerds. Okay. Anyway, there's I think if you have a luxury item and it's cheaply made, you're going to get in trouble for it eventually. All right. Um, they there's in dress and fashion is such a changeable thing, very very highly changeable. And so how do you deal with that with a watch? Now, there's some other things that you might think about. One, for example, you could have interchangeable dials. You could have someone, let's say you get your new Prada watch, you put a let's say UWD 31.1, I think is what they are, for the one that was made by Marco Lang, and you put that inside of the watch, and so you got this great piece of horology, and then styles change, and you could just sort of take this off and put it, and then put a new one on. Now that's a possibility, which makes sense in a lot of ways. Are there any watches? I think I've seen some startups that say you can do that. Hi, Corday. How you doing? Asking me about preferences, Bulgari or Cartier. It depends on the watch. I like them all. Hi, Roar of Tartar. You are Roar of Tardy. I'm glad you made it. Okay, let's see. What are some other ideas? Richard, let's see. I think Hermes Arcule. Oh man, this now you. I am so. I love to hear French spoken well, so I can't even. I don't like the sound of my own words, but I do my best. Lord de la Lune, double moon phase watch is a great example of a whimsical take on moon phase. Yes, it is, and I believe that watch, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't it have? Isn't it one of the? Let's see. That may be one of the Hermes watches that has a module in it by Agenor. So yes, I agree with that. See, this is if you look at the award-winning watches by Van Cleef and Arpels, you have they're very romantic, okay, and they have this couple going over this bridge together, and they meet in the middle. I mean, that's like automata in addition to it, and they want to. Of course, they win a lot of different things for that. So they're very whimsical and romantic. But those are women's watches. Now for guys, I don't know. Put a fist on one or a guy. I'm not sure. Diamond set watches that are produced by fashion houses but aren't set by jewelry houses will lose a lot of money on resale. Yeah, I know the resale. Listen, now, if all we think about is resale, I think we may find ourselves in sort of areas that we don't know as much about as we may think. If you're if you're talking about the fashion houses, a number of the fashion houses, by the way, not fashion houses, but a number of the top brands are jewelers. Like Harry Winston was a jeweler. So's Van Cleef and Arpels. The jewelers here are Tiffany's and Cartier, both identified as jewelers. This is something else. Now, what Tiffany is doing, which is really weird, they seem to have gone the opposite direction. They used to have really great deals and connections with Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, and some other top watchmakers making the movements for their watches. But now the last one I've seen, they're going a lot more toward quartz and cheaper movements. Men talking about fashion watches and bracelets. How can love them maintain manliness? Does this compute? Yeah, you know, you know, this is no talking about fashion. There can be no insecurity about your masculinity if you're having this discussion. You know, that's funny, poor, but okay. A solid timepiece for the money. What do you think? Or would you choose a JLC Reverso at that point? See, now the JLC Reverso is a good example, I think, of something that could be put into a fashion watch. And it's one of the few watches, oddly enough, that can go either way because the Reverso was initially uh, designed for a very rough and tumble sport, namely some guy who kept getting his watches banged up playing polo. And now, but they have what they did with them. They made them a little smaller and a little thinner. And for women's watches, they're fantastic. So that's sort of that to me is almost a model of what we might think about when we're talking about fashion watches getting into something else. One of the things I know that Van Cleef and Arpels, beside having this is their men's watch. I think they have another one in black, and then they have the original one that was designed in 1949 by Pierre Arpels. But they had some for a while. I think they're probably made in the early 2000s. Clyde's got one. They're great watches, but then they're hard to find. Those were guys' watches, and they're really interesting watches with hand dates, retrograde, power reserve indicators, things like that. Really neat pieces there. Mark J, where are you? You were here just a second ago. I want to find out how you're doing. Somebody I hadn't seen in a while showed up. Oh my God, they're alive. They made it. So that's another thing. Let's see, collaboration would sell well in the fashion market. Philippe Dufour collabs with Supreme. So who is Supreme, Val? I'm not sure who that is. Tony, let's see, Rolex seems to make incremental changes versus dramatic. That's what their PR people say. We only do incremental changes. In other words, they don't change very much at all. The incremental changes, that because they ran out of ideas, or is that because they really have a good watch, they really don't want to change it, or is it because they have all of this machinery set up to make watches? I this is one of the things that we can talk about. If I were running Rolex, I wouldn't want to make a lot of changes either, because you've got a cash cow going there, and so the only make a change if you really need to. That's my sense that I have of Rolex, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, they have, because I'm a big fan of sort of traditional materials and everything like that. And Rolex, bless their hearts, is that they're still using their parachrome, their blue parachrome hairspring. And I bless them for that. They have that Saloxy silicone one that they use on one of the women's watches, the Master Pearl Diver or something like that. Okay. Uh, for some reason, Rolaids. Okay. What do you think about Jaeger-LeCoultre? Well, I don't have one yet. I soon will have one. Jaeger-LeCoultre, about, oh man, must have been 3 or 4 years ago, in New York. I was at the Watch Time show, and I went and talked to the guy from Jaeger-LeCoultre's, and it was the first time that they had really been out with watches. And he said, well, he said, in the United States, we're not very well known. We don't have much marketing here, and so on and so forth. And but listening to them, man, I tell you, they're a nice little company. They really are. Um, I think on the horological side with Jaeger-LeCoultre's, I'm not too sure about their movements. I do think they have some of their own, though. I'm not positive, but I'll have to find out more about that. But they're an interesting one. They made their original fortune in China at the Emperor's Palace, along with Beauvais. They got an interesting history. Vert Kempt in our pels. What is that, Forbin? Okay, let's see. In my opinion, most gem-covered watches are grotesque. For me, the most horrid have stones on their lugs. Yuck. Okay, well, thank you for that. All right. What's going on? Hey, Mark, there you are. I'm happy to be here and doing fine. Thanks for asking. Your sort of your thing scrolled away, Mark. Where'd Mark go? Where'd Mark go? I'm glad you're here. I think your shirt. I think Foreman. I think I have your shirt as curtains in my casita. Boy, you know how to hurt a guy. All right, let's see. Four Okay, let's see. Val, Philippe Dufour clubs with Dulce Gabbana. Do they? I don't know. They could. This is the thing is that you have, for example, right now you've got a big deal between Chanel and Tudor, and they're both sort of sharing the same watchmaking outfit, uh, Kinesi. And in fact, they're even building something together. I think this kind of thing can be very helpful. You take a guy like who's just getting started, Stefan Kadoki. Okay, you take Stefan Kadoki, and then you take a company. We'll say Valentino. All right, and they say we need a watchmaker and someone to help us, get over to that. So he puts together something for them as a base movement. And I think that kind of collaboration with somebody with a younger guy, that might have a really good kind of connection. Um, with somebody like Philippe Dufour, let him make watches for us. Don't put him with. Don't waste his time on some brand. All he'd get doing that is a lot of money. He would not have the adoration that we seem to have. Okay, let's see what's else up. Hi, Cicero. What micro brand do you recommend? The term micro brand, I've come not to like that term, and I'll tell you why. On the one hand, you have some quick buck guy who thinks he's going to go out and he's got a plan. He's going to put some relatively inexpensive movements together. He's going to get the cases, he's going to slap on a dial and a couple hands, basically like the pretentious watchmakers, as we are, and do that. And they call that a micro brand. And then he's going to sell them. He's got some kind of marketing thing going online. And, on the other hand, you got guys like Stefan Kadoki, who's just getting started. He's a watchmaker. There's another guy, a lot of young guys, like some guys, and there's this one guy in France who just does these incredible watches. And there's some other young guys, some in Asia too. I think Um, Hajime Ahsoka's another guy, but he's sort of like he's taken off already. Sort of like FP Journe. As soon as there's a certain corner you turn in, everybody wants your watches. Same in China. I think that China, they have huge potential for really, getting into this. I've been Clyde and I have talked about this for a while, and it's like these guys are going to be a rocket to the moon if they can get together, get the finishing and a lot of the other thing, because the mechanics of it are, they're not that big of a deal, but the quality of the material and the workmanship is what puts them over one way or the other. Um, Daniel Katz, you approve of Grove. Tell me why. I've always liked them. I have sort of they're a company that I have some trouble making sense of. They're the ones, they have the what do they call it? The Grand Seconde. They got this little hour and minute, and then they have the at the bottom. The whole thing looks like an 8, which is goes very big in China. But they're interesting watches, I think. Um, Best women's timepiece is on. Oh, True Steers Guilty. Man, I tell you, what decade are you from? I don't listen to them. That's okay. But everyone's got their opinion. The French make the best collaborator. Jesus. Frank Mueller used to collab with Roberto Cavalli. That kind of thing is Roberto. See, Val, I'm sorry, I'm not smart enough to know who all of the fashion names are. Is Roberto Cavalli a fashion designer? Whoa, Bruce, it's time to go. All right, guys. I got to run. Uh, Thank you for coming, and I really, really liked your comments that you have. Okay, let me ask you. Here, Foreman's got something that looks halfway serious. Which master watchmaker has the most prolific? Was the most prolific in making high horology for other brands? Boy, maybe Agenor. That's my guess. I could be wrong. Daniel Roth did a whole lot of stuff, but just not sure. Anyway, guys, everyone stay safe. Take care. Get your shot if you haven't. And till next time, we'll see you then.